Our look at the historic is not an academic exercise, nor, for those versed in history, a review of the familiar. When we look at history's significant moments in the context of the universe as an evolution of consciousness, we see those moments as we have not seen them before. This is Session 1, Writing and Mathematics, in a course titled History as an Evolution of Consciousness, and that is an aspect of a larger view, evolution of consciousness theory. In this session, we look at early civilization and at the twin developments that define the historic, writing and mathematics. Anthropologists generally consider civilization to have begun with the move from a nomadic hunting and gathering way of life to an urban way of life. We derive the word civilization from, or at least associate it with, the word city. The earliest settlements date back to about 12,000 years ago and were located in what is today referred to as the Fertile Triangle of Mesopotamia. One of the oldest substantially developed urban centers was the Neolithic or New Stone Age settlement of Jericho, built on the present-day West Bank of Israel. Hunters had periodically occupied the site as far back as 9000 BC. By about 8000 BC, Jericho had grown into an established settlement with a population of about 2,500 residents. Inhabitants built a massive stone wall around the city. They irrigated fields and cultivated primitive types of wheat and barley. By about 4000 BC, the Middle East was dotted with towns and farms. From this nexus rose the most expansive of the world's early civilizations, Sumer. Located between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers in what would become Babylonia and is now southern Iraq, the Sumerian territory was originally settled by a non-Sumerian-speaking or non-Semitic people, the Ubaidians. The Ubaidians drained marshes to create farmland. They made and traded copper tools, jewelry, and weapons, and built funeral mounds and clay block masonry structures. Over time, Semitic people out of Anatolia, also called Asia Minor, an area in present-day Turkey, infiltrated the region, assimilated with and supplanted the Ubaidians. By about 3300 BC, Sumer was comprised of 12 or more city-states: Kish, Erech, Sippar, Akshak, Larak, Nippur, Adaba, Umma, Lagash, Bad Tabira, and Larsa. Each city-state consisted of a walled urban center surrounded by fields and villages. Each city-state also worshipped its own deity and built temples and religious sites in that deity's honor. Around 2800 BC, King Etana, ruler of Kish, united the Semite states. Unity, however, led to a battle for supremacy between city-states and left Sumer open to conquest by the Elamites out of present-day southwestern Iran and the Akkadians out of present-day central Iraq. A king named Sargon led the latter group of conquerors. Sargon's reign united the city-states, which after an invasion by the Zagros Range Gudians again became independent. We know a great deal about Sumer and other ancient Middle Eastern civilizations for a simple reason. As civilization advanced, it became increasingly difficult to conduct trade, wage war, and administer government through verbal language. To maintain humankind's rise out of collectivity, we adopted the practice of recording our thoughts, writing. As far back as 8000 BC, Mesopotamians used clay tokens shaped like cattle, sheep, grains, and other common goods to represent items. Tokens gave way to pictorial symbols inscribed in clay with a reed or sharp stick. The Mesopotamians shaped the clay on which they inscribed the symbols into rectangular slabs or tablets, which, with their firing, left historians with a durable record of ancient life and happenings. With the ascent of civilization, the need to record events and transactions grew more pressing, and writing grew more sophisticated. In early Sumer, symbols, or graphs, represented numerals, the names of objects, and the names of persons. Numerical graphs were geometric shaped. Object graphs were stylized pictures of the items they represented. Over time, Sumerian graphical symbolism expanded to where graphs represented spoken words, a logographic writing system. As civilization advanced, symbols became less picture-like and more conventionalized. Such constituted a cuneiform system of writing, the name derived from the Latin word cuneus or wedge, which reflected the strokes used to form the symbols. In a crude way, the Sumerians went on to use symbols to represent spoken sounds rather than objects and complete words, a phonographic system. After the advent of writing in Sumer, symbolic representation emerged in Elam and Egypt. Like pre-phonographic Sumerian systems, Egyptian writing was based on pictorial symbols that represented objects, hieroglyphics. The Egyptians recorded their language in clay, in stone, and on papyrus, a form of paper made from the pith of the papyrus plant. The Elamite system built on the Sumerian phonographic principle to create a crude logosyllabolic system, or a method of writing where symbols represent the syllables of words. The Assyrians and the Babylonians, who spoke a dialect of the Elam Akkadian language, refined this level of writing into a form known as Akkadian cuneiform. The threshold that would lead to writing as we know it today was the alphabetic principle, whereby a syllable is broken into vowel and consonant sounds. Alphabetic scripts traced to the Semitic alphabet, believed to have been invented around 2000 BC by the Phoenicians. Modern Arabic and Hebrew script traced to alphabetized Semitic script. It was not until 1400 BC and Mycenaean Greek civilization, however, that the first writing system consistently based on sound structure emerged. Linguists call this system Linear B. After writing emerged in Egypt and Mesopotamia, it emerged in Anatolia, the Indus Valley, and China. Outside the Middle East, the evolution of writing paralleled that which took place in Egypt and Mesopotamia. In the New World, however, civilization progressed only as far as logographic systems similar to that of ancient Egypt, and in North America, many nomadic bands never developed writing beyond crude pictorial forms. Inseparable from the development of writing is the development of mathematics. As often defined, mathematics is a language that makes it possible to differentiate and express the logical relationship between two or more measurable qualities. These qualities may be as varied as the lengths of the three sides that make up a triangle and the amounts of tin and copper needed to formulate bronze. For the most part, we express the mathematical language symbolically. Like writing, mathematics originated in the Middle East, its roots traceable to the numerical graphs of early Sumer. The earliest mathematical symbols represented numbers and made it easier to count and to record quantities. They also opened the way for basic addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. In Sumer, archaeologists have found evidence of a mathematics based on a systematic numeric system as far back as 3000 BC. The Sumerian numeric system used an additive as opposed to a fixed decimal principle with a base of 10. Its applications were limited to the arithmetic associated with trade and building. The Egyptians developed a similar base 10 mathematical system, but applied it on a more extensive scale. With the development of writing in Egypt, there emerged a class of literate professionals called the scribes. The scribes kept civil records, accounted for taxes, and managed building projects. They knew how to measure the volume of pyramids and how to calculate the amount of food to distribute to the workers who built them. Because of their ability to account for supplies and payrolls, the scribes also oversaw the orchestration of war. So significant were the scribes to winning or losing a battle that victory or defeat was often attributed to the scribe in charge as much as to the general, and rewards and punishments were given out accordingly. Though the Egyptians made extensive use of mathematics, Egyptian mathematical theory was limited to accounting and basic geometry. The Babylonians thought more deeply about their mathematics and developed a place value numeric system with a base of 60, sexagesimal. Mathematical historians are not sure why the Babylonians settled on a sexagesimal system, but it enabled them to make the astronomical calculations necessary to predict lunar eclipses and critical points in planetary cycles. By the 3rd century BC, the Babylonians had also developed a symbol that mathematicians believe may be associated with the concept of zero. As time progressed, mathematics in Egypt and Babylonia expanded to include simple algebra. Later, the Greeks built on elements of both systems to invent an abstract mathematics founded on a structure of axioms, proofs, and definitions. Arguably, the greatest thrust forward in mathematical development took place with Galileo, Newton, and modern science. As we described in our course on reconstruction of the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure, when we think of the Earth, it is possible to speak of a lithosphere, or the layer of hard rock that makes up the Earth's crust. It is also possible to speak of a hydrosphere and of a biosphere, or the Earth's lakes and oceans, and the layer of living things they support. We can also envision the Earth in terms of the 20th century French philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin's concept of the noosphere, or a layer composed of human thought and the activities and artifacts that result from that thought. With the advent of writing and mathematics, humankind's rise to greater consciousness and understanding in the noosphere advanced at an accelerated rate. In what way did writing and mathematics reflect the evolution of the human being to greater consciousness and understanding? In what way did writing and mathematics reflect the evolution of human social structure to more nestled, intimate, and less collective structural forms? With our look at early civilization and at the development of writing and mathematics, we complete Session 1 in our course on civilization's ascent from the standpoint of evolution of consciousness theory. Our course titled History as an Evolution of Consciousness continues in Session 2, Ancient Egypt.